My name is Lillian, and I'm 29. The night it happened, the living room light was too bright, the kind that makes shadows sharp, voices louder. My parents stood across from me, their faces twisted with a rage I still don't understand. "Get out," my mother hissed. "Never come back," my father thundered right after. The words didn't echo. They landed heavy, like stones dropped in water, and everything inside me rippled. For a moment, I thought maybe I had misheard, that maybe the silence in the room would give them a chance to take it back. But they didn't. My mother folded her arms as though sealing the decision, and my father turned his face away like I was already gone. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling, though I wasn't cold. I had been holding a set of keys, not just to my car, but to the house we were standing in. Keys I had paid for month after month, while they pretended it was theirs. I slipped the keys into my pocket, careful, almost reverent. I didn't shout. I didn't plead. I just stood there in the wreckage of a family that had never really been mine, and then I left. The front door closed softly, almost politely behind me. That night the sky looked too wide. My breath clouded in the chill, but my chest felt strangely light. No suitcase, no belongings, just me, walking down the path like a stranger who had overstayed her welcome. And in that strange silence I realized something. Leaving wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a truth they had buried for years. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries so completely that you had to choose yourself, even if it meant losing them? Let me know in the comments. For weeks, I lived in that silence away from the house. I didn't call. I didn't visit. And I didn't pay. The mortgage bill arrived, but not at my door this time. It landed on theirs. And with it came the weight of their own ignorance. When my brother finally called, his voice carried both panic and authority, as if he had the right to demand from me what was never his. "Why did you stop paying?" he barked. I didn't answer right away. The question hung in the air as fragile as glass. I knew the moment was coming, the one where truth slices through silence. And when it did, their world would never look the same. My brother's voice rattled through the phone, sharp and impatient. "You can't just stop, Lillian. The bank is calling every day. Dad is furious. Mom can't sleep. What are you doing?" I sat by the window of my small apartment, the late sun spilling gold across the cracked wood floor. I had no curtains yet, just light pouring in, unfiltered, raw, like the truth I had been holding. "Do you know what you're asking me?" I said softly. He scoffed. "I'm asking you to act like part of this family. That house doesn't pay for itself. You've been doing it for years. Why stop now?" My lips curled, not in a smile but something colder. The irony tasted bitter on my tongue. "That's exactly why," I whispered. He didn't catch it, or maybe he refused to. He pressed harder, his tone dripping with entitlement. "You can't abandon us like this. Without you, the mortgage will sink everything. They said you were selfish, and now you're proving it." I leaned back against the wall, my gaze catching on the small keychain dangling from my bag. A single house key glinted there, catching the sunlight. The motif of my silence, the symbol of their blindness. "Funny," I murmured, "how you call it abandonment when I was never invited in the first place." There was a pause. Not silence, just the faint hum of his breath, unsteady, like he was piecing together a puzzle he didn't want to solve. "Stop being dramatic," he snapped. "This is bigger than you. That's our family home." I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. Not loud, not cruel, just tired. "Who's home?" I asked. Another pause, longer this time. I could almost hear the crack in his confidence, like glass spiderwebbing under pressure. "You mean, what are you saying?" His voice wavered, though he tried to steady it. I traced the ridges of the key with my thumb, the metal warm from the sun. "I'm saying," I replied slowly, "that sometimes you scream at someone to get out without realizing it was never your house to begin with." The silence on the other end was suffocating, yet strangely freeing. For the first time, I felt the weight shifting, no longer on my shoulders, but on theirs. I didn't hang up. I let him sit in it, let him hear the truth forming between us. Because the house was mine, and soon they would have no choice but to face it. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't my brother, it was my mother. The screen lit up with her name, and for a moment I just stared. I hadn't heard her voice since the night she told me to leave. I answered, slowly. "Lillian," she said, her voice rushed thin. "We need to talk." Her tone was different, not sharp, not commanding, almost pleading. But beneath it, I could still hear the echo of her words. "Never come back." "What do you want, Mom?" My voice was steady, though my fingers tightened around the phone. "You've made your point," she said, "but your brother's right. You can't just stop paying. This house," she hesitated, catching her own slip. "Our house, it needs you." I let the word "our" hang in the air, tasting the bitterness of it. "Do you even realize," I asked quietly, "how much I've carried for you? While you called me selfish, while you told me I was nothing, I was the one holding your roof up." Her breath hitched. She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "We thought you owed us." I closed my eyes. The sunlight streamed in through the blinds, cutting my skin into stripes. "I don't owe you my silence. I don't owe you my money. And I don't owe you my life." On the other end, she went still. My words seemed to hollow out the space between us. Finally, she asked the question I knew was coming. "Whose name is on the deed?" I reached for the folder I'd kept tucked in the bottom drawer, the one I had signed years ago in quiet defiance. The papers still smelled faintly of ink and cardboard. I pressed my hand over them as though steadying a heartbeat. "My name," I said. "Calm. Certain. Not yours. Not Dad's. Mine." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. And in that silence, I realized the power wasn't in raising my voice. It was in never having to again. The house was mine, and they were only just beginning to understand what that meant. 2 days later, they showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock before I saw their shadows move against the frosted glass. 3 sharp raps like a warning. My chest tightened, but I didn't hesitate. I opened the door. My father stood in front, arms crossed, his presence filling the hallway. My mother lingered behind him, eyes downcast. And my brother, he looked like he wanted to storm past me. "Lillian," my father started, his tone measured but trembling underneath. "We need to straighten this out." I leaned on the doorframe, not moving. "Straighten what out? The mortgage? Or the fact that you threw me out of my own house?" My brother stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Don't twist this. You're punishing everyone. Just hand the payments back, and we'll forget all this nonsense." A laugh slipped from me before I could stop it. Not cruel, just disbelieving. "Forget? You screamed at me to never come back. You made me a ghost in my own home. And now you want me to keep paying, so you can keep pretending." My mother finally raised her eyes. They were glossy, uncertain. "We were angry, Lillian. Families fight. Don't make this permanent." I glanced at the small key, still hanging from my bag. Its shine dulled now, but more alive to me than any of their words. That key wasn't just metal. It was truth. "You think this is about anger?" I said softly. "No, this is about ownership and responsibility. Things you never gave me credit for, but took from me anyway." My father's face darkened. "So what now? You plan to put us out on the street? Is that your revenge?" The word revenge echoed, bitter and heavy. I held it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I don't need revenge. I just need recognition. You wanted me gone, and I'm gone. But the house stays mine." They stared at me, the weight of my words pressing into the narrow hallway. My brother's fists opened and closed, like he was clinging to power that no longer existed. For the first time, they looked smaller to me. Not because they had shrunk, but because I had finally stopped bending. And that shift, Quiet, unshakable was my beginning. That night, my brother sent a message. Not a call this time, just words on a screen. You'll regret this. Family doesn't betray family. I stared at it, the glow of my phone casting pale light across the room. The irony almost made me laugh. Family doesn't betray family? Hadn't they done exactly that the moment they screamed at me to leave? I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to the drawer and pulled out the folder again. The deed. My name. Black ink on white paper. Undeniable. I traced the letter slowly, reminding myself that I wasn't powerless, no matter how loudly they insisted otherwise. By morning, the threats grew softer. A voicemail from my mother, voice cracking. We can't afford the payments. Your father, he's breaking down. Please, Lillian, just one more month. Her words twisted something in me. A part of me wanted to bend, the way I always had. But I stopped myself. Every bend had broken me before. This time I stood straight. I replied with a single sentence. You told me to never come back. I'm honoring your wish. Hours later, my brother appeared again, this time at the bank. I was there finalizing some paperwork when I saw him pacing by the teller's desk, red in the face. He spotted me, stormed over, his voice sharp enough to turn heads. You think you're clever? You can't do this to us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even look around. I simply set the folder on the counter, opening it so the light could catch on the signature line. It's already done, I said. He froze, eyes dropping to the papers. His lips moved, but no sound came. In that silence, I saw the first crack of realization. For years, he had treated me like an outsider, the one who didn't belong. And now, in the most public way possible, he was being forced to face the truth. The outsider was the owner. The teller cleared her throat politely, sliding the papers back toward me. Everything is in order, Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter, not daughter, not sister, not the family scapegoat. Just me, standing in my own name. My brother's eyes lifted to mine, rage colliding with fear. And for the first time I didn't flinch. Days passed, and the silence from my family grew heavier. Not gone, just simmering, waiting to erupt. Then, on a quiet Thursday evening, an envelope arrived at my apartment. No return address, just my name scribbled across the front. Inside was a letter, written in my father's stiff handwriting. We built that house. You can't erase us from it. If you have any respect left, you'll sign it back. Think of your mother. Think of your brother. Don't be selfish. I read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it on the table. The word selfish clung to me, sharp as glass. They had called me that my whole life, when I bought something for myself, when I said no, when I dared to live differently. Selfish, selfish, selfish. But this time the word didn't cut. It cracked open something else, clarity. I walked to the hallway mirror, the one with a thin fracture down its corner, a crack that had been there since I moved in. I stared at my reflection, split by that line. For the first time, I saw not damage, but separation. Me on one side, them on the other. That night, I drafted my own letter. Short, precise, final. Respect is not demanded, it's earned. You lost your claim to mine when you told me to leave. The deed will remain in my name. I wish you peace, but I won't fund your silence anymore. The next morning, I delivered it myself. I slid the envelope into their mailbox, the air crisp against my skin. As I turned to leave, I caught sight of my mother peering through the window, her face pale, her hand clutching the curtain. For a moment, guilt pricked my chest. But then I remembered her voice that night, never come back. By the weekend, my brother cornered me outside the grocery store. His voice was low, almost desperate this time. Lillian, they're falling apart. Dad's health is slipping. Mom cries every night. You can't keep this up. I held the grocery bag tighter, the keychain brushing against my hand. I didn't start this, I told him. I'm just living with the truth you all refuse to see. His shoulders slumped, like the fight was leaving him. For once, he had no retort. And in that silence, I realized the power had already shifted. Sunday afternoon, the house itself called me back. Not through their voices, but through a letter from the bank. They had fallen behind. Without my payments, the cracks were showing. I sat on my couch, the paper trembling in my hands, though not from fear, from recognition. This was the truth, finally catching up to them. That evening, I drove by the old street. The house stood there, tall but tired, blinds crooked, paint chipped. My childhood window was open, a curtain fluttering weakly in the breeze. For a moment, I felt something twist inside me, grief for the memories, not for the people. As I slowed the car, my brother stormed out the front door. He saw me and came straight across the lawn, anger written all over his face. "You did this!" he shouted, gripping the driver's side window. "You're destroying them." I didn't flinch. Instead, I lowered the window, my face calm. No, they destroyed themselves when they decided I wasn't family. I only stepped out of the role they forced me into. He blinked, caught between rage and disbelief. "You're enjoying this?" The question almost made me laugh. Enjoying? No, but I won't apologize for finally being free. I reached over to the passenger seat and held up the deed folder, letting him see the bold print of my name through the clear cover. His eyes darted to it like it was fire. "You still don't get it," I said. "This house isn't yours to lose. It never was." His grip loosened. He stepped back, shoulders shaking. I could see the weight of reality pressing down on him. The house, the bills, the lies unraveling. I put the car in gear, the engine humming low. "Tell them this isn't revenge," I said quietly. "It's just the truth, finally standing where it belongs." As I drove off, the mirror caught his figure, shrinking in the distance. For the first time, he looked small. That night, I placed the deed on my kitchen table, laying the key on top of it. The key glinted under the overhead light, no longer a burden, but a symbol. Not of what I had lost, but of what I had reclaimed. And I knew part 8 would not be about them. It would be about me, choosing peace on my own terms. The final call came a week later. Not from my brother, not from my father, but from my mother. Her voice was different this time, stripped of pride. "Lillian," she said softly, "we're sorry." I let the words linger. For so long, I had imagined hearing them. I thought they might heal something inside me, but instead I felt still. "Sorry for what?" I asked. Her pause told me everything. Sorry for the payments they lost. Sorry for the comfort they missed. Not sorry for the night they told me to vanish. Not sorry for making me feel like I never belonged. I sighed, tracing the edge of the key that lay on my table. "You asked me to leave, Mom, and I did. I respected your wish. All that's left now is for you to respect the truth." She began to cry, not loud sobs, but the kind that shivers through the phone line. And though a piece of me wanted to soothe her, I stayed quiet. Because sometimes silence is the only way to break a cycle. A week later, I signed the final papers at the bank, transferring the house fully into my name alone, free of any remaining ties. The pen felt heavy, but when the ink dried, so did the weight on my chest. The house was mine, but more than that, my life was mine. That evening, I stood at my apartment window, the city glowing around me. I thought of all the years I had given, the money, the obedience, the silence, and I thought of how quickly they had thrown me out, as if I were disposable. Yet, here I was, standing taller than I ever had. I opened the folder one last time, laid the deed flat, and placed the key in its center. It was no longer about the house. It was about choosing myself at last. To anyone listening, anyone who's ever been cast out by the people who were supposed to protect them, remember this. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not anger, not destruction, but peace. Quiet, undeniable peace. And with that, I whispered the final word to myself, like closing a door that no longer hurt to shut.